Since the morning, we've managed to gather so many varied insights, and it's time to actually connect the path. This time, in fact, as the last segment of the program, we decided to have the closing remarks by another very dynamic leader who's joining us this evening, who is the Director General, National Mission for Clean Ganga, NMCG, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India. In fact, since the year 2018, he has spearheaded Namami Gange program, an integrated river rejuvenation approach with multiple activities spanning 11 states of the Ganga River Basin and creating a model program for river rejuvenation in India. We have the august presence of Shri Rajiv Ranjan Mishra joining us to share the closing remarks, but most importantly, sharing with us his thoughts on ESGs to SDGs, the role of water in connecting the paths. With that, the segment begins in just a few seconds. Here we go.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Are you able to hear me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's really very heartening to be amongst such a distinguished group and share some thoughts on this very exciting theme, the ESG to SDG, this journey, and then what role water plays in particular. First of all, let me compliment Economic Times for organizing this SDG summit on such an important topic and bringing together such a diverse set of views from experts, from leaders in different sectors, whether it's government or business or other experts. I believe there were, I think, more than 50 speakers among different sessions. Really focused discussion took place on different thematic areas. We got during the day the leadership perspective in business. We also got more detailed idea about ESG investment, the impact investment, and also a little deeper understanding of what exactly E means, S means, and G means, and what are the implications and what are the interventions happening on each of these aspects of ESG investments. And a few reports were also launched. I think these reports will be very useful for carrying forward this dialogue, whether it's a report on future escape and sustainability index, and also the other report which actually traverses through the transition the business has to undergo. So I think during the course of discussion, already several aspects of SDG and several aspects of ESG have come. It's really very heartening to note the tenor of discussion and this whole exercise, because I am just reminded of where at one point of time business used to look at the corporate, social, and financial performance. The relationship has not been a new theme. I think it has been old theme, but there was a time in maybe early 70s, and there was a Friedman's view, who basically said that the business has only one social responsibility, and that is to increase its profit. Of course, the rider was we should not violate any rule, we should not do any fraud, we should not be having any deception. But as long as you are making profit, perhaps you are also making your social ends meet. From that kind of viewpoint, I think the world has come a very, very long way in last few decades. And now we are talking more and more about social and more broadly about ESG integration in corporate management and corporate strategy. And this really got catalyzed by UNPRI in 2006. Now, looking at SDG, and we had a chance to look at SDG in different sessions. And the SDGs are basically giving us a kind of global development goals agreed by all countries, where basically we look at environmental and economic development together. and how our economic development, social development can be also environmentally sustainable, and what exactly we have to do. I was reflecting and more specifically about water. Now, if you look at, there is a very specific goal, SDG 6, which looks at water and sanitation. But typically water flows through and connects all the SDGs. I think that's why water becomes very important. SDG 6 talks about clean water and sanitation. We talk about equitable and affordable access for safe waters, safe sanitation for everyone. But at the same time, that goal also goes beyond just access to water or safe water. It talks about protecting and rejuvenating the entire water ecosystem. It talks about water use efficiency. It talks about reuse. It talks about several things. And that makes it very, very important. And if you look at a program like Namami Gange, which is an integrated river conservation program, we are not looking at river just like in isolation. We are looking at entire river and its ecosystem. And that's why this program also interacts with several other SDGs which are related with water and not just SDG 6. Now, SDGs are further connected. They can be viewed and categorized through ESG lens also. So while SDGs are at a much broader level and a kind of much more larger perspective comes, but looking at corporate investment, looking at corporate goal, looking at more at the business level, this ESG becomes important, and then ESGs can be looked at in social. Some of the SDGs has a very important environmental role aspect, and it also has a very important social aspect. So I think the combination of E and S, or combination of E and G, or S and G, I think you can see in different SDGs. So I think that journey becomes very important. Looking again a little bit upon how water flows through other SDGs. I think if you look at the SDG on health, the recent COVID pandemic brought it very clearly to all of us that good health cannot be without access to good water. And then I think that role need not be again and again explained. Similarly, the SDG 11, which deals with urbanization, basically sustainable cities and communities, again, water plays a very, very important role. And climate action, the SDG 13 or 14 and 15, the life below water, the life on land. I think all these SDGs are very, very directly related with water, and how we manage water, how we deal with water at different level, at the level of city, at the level of village, at the level of the business which is related with them, they all become important. But again, I think I will very quickly mention that the other SDGs, the zero hunger, food production and agriculture, can we imagine that without proper water management? Or what kind of cropping pattern, what kind of water use efficiency we have and we need to improve in agriculture. I think that's very, very important. And then that there is a lot of link with the SDG on energy. I think there were several sessions where we talked about sustainability in energy sector. And then several things are there. Another SDG which I would like to come back again is basically about SDG number 12. Which is basically talking about responsible consumption and production. That's core of sustainability, and that's core of circular economy, which is very important from the point of view of sustainability, which is also very important from the point of view of profitability. So I think there are several aspects which we have to look at. Now, when we look at different ESG standards, metrics and framework, which perhaps this deliberation went into detail in different sessions, I think we need to understand them, and then we need to also look at these perspectives from the corporate point of view about how exactly they can go. But what's very heartening, which came up in today's discussion, and which I will also like to highlight, that business perhaps at one point of time was looking at all these perspective about ESG or about SDG from the point of view of compliance. But that viewpoint is changing, and changing for good, because compliance anyway, if you look at the future prospect and looking at water or any other kind of environmental issues, the compliance is anyway going to become more and more strict, and more awareness will be there among people to seek these compliance in a much better manner. But I think apart from compliance in the form of falling within the law and regulation, what's perhaps interesting is the business is also looking at sustainability beyond compliance. And then actually this makes lot of business sense for them to look at, because if you are serious in a business, if you are serious in a sector, you won't like to work for few years. You will like to exist there for a very long time. And that can only come when all these aspects are integrated into that. As we know, water is one of the top ESG concerns. And different global asset management survey, if you look at different perspective, you look at, if you ask investors, perhaps they consider water with lot of seriousness. And there is also a lot of concern about if you are investing in an industry, or if you are investing in a business, how they are dealing with water, how they are dealing with the use of water, how much water they are consuming, whether that water will be available to them. Number one. Number two, how they are dealing with the pollution of water, whether your activities are leading to certain polluting activities, or if by nature there is a kind of pollution, what kind of processes are there, what kind of things are there. Now, at this point of time, as we have been deliberating together, as we all know, and there are different estimates about to achieve all these SDGs, all these goals globally by 2030, I think what kind of finances are required, what kind of investments are required, and it's really huge. And then the gap also is very huge. And that's why perhaps we need to deliberate like this, as we have been doing in this session, and carry it forward, because this kind of gap cannot be only the responsibility of government or some of the philanthropic organizations. I think business has to chip in a big way. And government can play a role. Government role can be more in terms of developing a kind of enabling atmosphere, but lot of investments need to come from business. Now, how it will come and why it will come, because there has to be some sort of incentive for business also to do it. I will just give you one or two examples from what we have tried to do, or let's take an example of wastewater management sector. Quality of water is one of the important SDGs. And improving the quality of water, whether it is river or water body or any other thing, it's a very important target for us. So what we tried to do, as we all know, that the sewage, the municipal sewage, the treatment capacity, there is a huge gap. We generate more than 70,000 million liters per day in the country. The treatment capacity exists for about 40,000. And that too, there are compliance issues. Some of the plants which are there, they don't work with, they don't meet all the standards. So I think there is a huge gap, and then we will not be in a position to fulfill or meet this kind of gap very quickly. So we were first to introduce hybrid annuity mode of PPP, where basically we get some investment in the beginning. Of course, government pays them, and there is a possibility of bringing some revenue stream by way of reuse and all that. But this model has started working. Initially, there was a lot of skepticism, but I can tell you with a lot of satisfaction in last 3-4 years, we have been able to stabilize and develop a kind of market for water. And then several companies are investing into this, and it's also bringing better performance. So while society is gaining by way of better performance of treatment of sewage treatment, we are also able to do more work with less money available with the government in a shorter period of time. What happened in Ganga Basin, we are having more than 10,000 crore worth investment through hybrid annuity mode, but it's going beyond Ganga Basin. It has been accepted by Niti Aayog, and CEO Niti Aayog was here. He was a great supporter of this approach, and he has agreed, he has vetted this approach, and for the entire country. I'm very happy to tell you, very recently Hyderabad city has agreed, he has adopted this model, and they have actually sanctioned for the entire gap, almost 700 million liters per day projects based upon this approach. So I think we have to actually join hands and then try to, and as you know, this is a very, very important goal from the point of view of the environment, from the point of view of the social thing, because it actually impinges directly upon the health of the people and improving things. Now, there are few issues, the few thoughts I would like to leave with us to ponder. Now, we have been talking, and then there were some sessions I saw that several industry leaders also highlighted it. Someone from textile side, I think they talked what they are doing to make their operations green. And we in the Ganga Basin, primarily we have dealt with textile industries, we are dealing with tanneries, we are dealing with paper and pulp and several other industries. Our approach has been, one thing is to do enforcement. As you say, the compliance to the standard is one part, make it little more automated, use technology. But what's very important, and what I will like to share with you, and then several of the business leaders who talk to they may be also doing it, make the process greener. And that is where the technology plays a major role. So we have tried to help them by making certain charters. Textile industry also has been improving, but there is a long way to go. So I think to make our own process greener, to consume less water, to generate less effluent, less toxic effluent, and slowly go towards zero liquid discharge industry. Similarly, go for zero liquid discharge cities. I think that's not a very usual concept, but we are trying to talk about cities. We are talking to the river cities, and then trying to develop a kind of planning paradigm for river cities with the help of Housing and Urban Affairs and several think tanks. They are working with us to develop river sensitive master plans. And that is something which is going to really help us. Similarly, can we improve riverfronts? Can we improve, can we adopt, can the industry, can the business adopt some of the water body in the area? I think we consume that water, we run our business. Can we develop a kind of linkage with the society? Can we adopt some of the water body? Can we help in regenerating that? What can we do for urban forestry? What can we do for improving vegetation? And this is where I think I will like us to think little differently, especially in the context of urban systems, because as you know, we all have talked about climate change and then the impact of climate change. And cities are going to play a major role. I mean, there are several aspects of climate change, and perhaps I may not be able to go into that. But giving an example of the cities are going to play a major role. The way our cities are designed, the way different business, different construction activity takes place, we become heat center in the city. So I think we have to actually think differently and go for a kind of more water sensitive urban design. Now, the construction companies, how we look at the cities, how we look at the water, how we look at the river, it's very important. First of all, we have to integrate our thinking. We have to think little differently. We don't have to think water differently, whether it is surface water or groundwater, whether it is river or it's floodplain. I think they're all part of one system. And then we have to design the cities in such a way that we try to take advantage of some of the challenges. The recent IPCC report very clearly says that the extreme weather events are going to become more and more frequent. So they also say that we are not going to lose rainfall. There will be more rainfall. In fact, we are watching in Delhi in September so much of rainfall. Now, what happens, how you deal with this rainfall, how you utilize the open space in the city, how you design to actually catch this rain. I think we are all aware, and several of the industry who participate in the rainwater harvesting. Can your campuses be fully utilized? The open area can be utilized to catch this rainwater. Now, the way we look at storm water, our whole approach is that we should simply get rid of this storm and let the city not be flooded. But what we can do is, can we utilize this rainwater to recharge aquifer? Can we utilize them to generate, to improve groundwater in the open area, in the parks? And then what can different kind of business, what can their campus, what can you do to actually help us? Because what the excess rainfall can also be a solution for us to recharge our water bodies. So I think to some extent we have to look at these kind of solutions, these kind of approach, and these kind of alternatives. Similarly, as we all know, that increasingly the financial institutions are going to look at ESG performance or compliance of different industries before investing. different projects. I think we all talked about the green financing, and then the lot of fund which will come for climate change and then mitigating thing. So I think our ESG framework has to become more robust. I think we started little early in our mission here with the help of World Bank. We tried to look at some of our investment, some of the infrastructure investment with by making that environment and social management plans. So I think that kind of thing has gone. But I will like to tell here that another very important area when we are looking at water. See, we use fresh water indiscriminately. And especially in North India, the south and western part of our country is still a little more sensitive because perhaps they look at the shortage of water. So I think another area where perhaps the ESG journey and SDG can be put together is looking at thinking differently at water and thinking from not linearly, but thinking from circular point of view, the circular economy. What happens to the wastewater? Do we need, I mean, the concept of fit for use water and those standards become very important for our consideration. And then perhaps we have to look at that. And we are trying to do it through several projects. And I'm very happy to tell you that several state policies are also coming up to promote this reuse of treated wastewater, but we have to do more. And then we are also trying to develop a kind of national framework. This is again a place where many of the companies, many of the business working in this sector can develop, and many of these companies have also developed, can join this journey, can develop very good business models for this kind of reuse or circular economy. So because the cause is environmental, but it's also actually going to generate a lot of economic benefit for the business, a lot of economic gain is also possible. So I think these are some of the ideas where we have to look. There is a huge opportunity because government is giving a very high priority to the water sector and water and sanitation. We are all aware about the investments happening in drinking water sector through Jal Jeevan Mission. Through Jal Jeevan Mission, urban is also coming up. Swachh Bharat Mission, both rural and urban, is doing tremendous investment in improving this sector. Program like Namami Gange, which is in the Ganga basin, but actually, as Honorable Prime Minister has been saying, that it's creating a kind of model for entire basin improvement and basin management, whether it is vegetation, whether it is ecology improvement. So I think for all other rivers also the similar kind of approach is expanding. So we have a lot of opportunity in this sector, and we have to be little sensitive about using water because it's limited and it's also very precious, without which it's not be possible. I came across a very interesting survey about how impact investing is being looked after or looked at by the business, and Professor Bikram Gandhi's article from Harvard Business School, I was looking. What he says, I mean, as a kind of a survey, he was saying that the younger generation strongly believe that doing good and doing well economically, doing well can go together. And I think that is something which we have to take home the message. And it should not be limited to only the new generation. Of course, new generation is giving us this hope that the new leadership in business is perhaps getting more committed about it. As I told you, we have started with profit being only motive to sustainability being also an equally important motive. And I'm quite hopeful that we can work together and we can achieve much more in future with this kind of idea. And I can tell you, I can share you very honestly with you, perhaps there is no other option also. Because the way environment and the way climate change is coming, it's no longer a remote thing. We all see its impact in our day-to-day life. So I think we have all collectively, we have to decide to work in such a way that we also make profit, but we also do not damage environment. We also become socially relevant, because it should not happen that people quote a lockdown and say that if you close the industry, the rivers can be clean. So I think that's no one's thought that we should all lock ourselves inside and then close the economy to get environment sustainable. I think that's no one's case. And when we work on that, and then another thought, perhaps we have to work together, we have to see value in it, and we have to develop human capital. There is a lot of capacity constraint. We talk about climate change and then global negotiations, we are more aware, but what can an urban manager, what can a corporate executive do? I think there is need to sensitize, there is need to build up that kind of capacity and develop a kind of climate leadership also in both in the government sector and also in the corporate sector. But I am very hopeful. I think such deliberations, what we have done today, actually gives us a lot of hope that different sectors, all the stakeholders are coming together, because that's the only solution. Together we will be able to do much better, whether it is economy or whether it is ecology. As we all know, the good ecology is permanent economy. So I think I will like to leave you with this thought. Once again, I compliment Economic Times for organizing such thought-provoking debate on this. I'm quite sure this is beginning of a journey, and then we would be very, very happy to be part of this journey and work with you in developing these ideas more at micro level, more at the implementation level, and more at the cutting edge level. Thank you.